So Edith, let me pick on you first. The question is, will we always work? So let's cut right to the chase. You know everything about AI. You're seeing all the new bells and whistles that are coming out. Will we always work?
I think before we start during the will we always work is what's the definition of work?
Sure.
And I think the key thing for us, all of us to think about and remember is two premises. One is we're so much more than our work. What's the definition of work to begin with, right? I think for the longest time, we think about like our existence is because we have to provide for families, we make the society better. But we are so much more than just our job and our work. That's number one. And then number two is AI really can free us from doing things that we don't want to do, free us to focus on more meaningful work. Think about, even though jobs like the milkman or elevator operator or who wants to sell encyclopedia anymore, even these jobs exist today. We don't want to do it anymore. And that's really what AI and automation is all about.
Well, thank you. Felipe, very interesting that you used the example of the milkman, because your Kiwibot, which you're deploying to universities around the United States, to campuses, is destroying not the milkman, not taking that job away, but the delivery person, which is interesting because if you think about how we get our food, we used to go to the restaurant, then they came up with takeaway, then we got apps that allow us to get the food, but it was still delivered by a person. Now you're getting rid of that job too. Do you feel a little bit bad about taking away these jobs with your robots?
Yeah, so what I believe is that the future of work is that we're going to work less on things that we don't want to do. What's happening right now in the college campuses in the US, where we have already deployed thousands of robots, is that we are doing tasks that people don't want to do. Our customers, one of our customers, Sodexo, they have 18,000 openings of jobs that they haven't been able to fulfill. So there are sectors like the hospitality sector, food sector, that they're having high labor shortages.
Yeah.
After the pandemic, people started to think twice what they want to do. Yes.
It's not just people sort of lazy because
No.
$14 an hour, not good enough for me.
I will say that there are jobs that definitely you don't dream to do, and those are jobs that are good, but maybe, I don't know, cleaning things, manual and repetitive tasks is something that you don't dream to be when you grow up, and that's where I agree with you. That's where AI and robotics is going to help us free our time and focusing what's really important.
Okay. So, Edith, I appreciated the premises you delivered at the beginning, but you didn't answer the question. Will we always work?
I think we will continue to work, all of us, because that's really what defines us. So not just work in the sake of I'm doing certain things, but it's really for a higher purpose, meaningful jobs. But one thing for sure is we're not going to replace by AI. But all of us will be replaced by humans that know how to use AI. So that's the key thing that is really about how do we make sure that we have the skills, but not the jobs.
Yeah, that's something I want to come back to at the end of this conversation. Felipe, I just want to sort of question this idea that people don't want these jobs, right? So I get it, on a US campus, the kids have other things to do. Maybe they don't need the $14 an hour. But if you are in a low-income country, I can't imagine that everyone would turn their nose at an opportunity to make $14 an hour, sort of delivering food, for example. At what point does your robot and the use of AI not make sense to replace the human being for work?
Yes, well, I have made the analysis,
yes.
And I will say that it makes sense to implement robotics in places, right now, I'm talking about today, in places where the minimum wage is greater than $6 per hour.
Wow.
But that could change in the future. Maybe in 3 or 4 years, that number could be $2 or $3 per hour. So that's one part. Second, I will say that the human condition, we can sense a lot of things. We can understand. We can take care. We can cheer up. We can create. But there is a big population that it's only doing manual and repetitive tasks like pick and place, like operating a tool, operating an appliance, and that's where I think that robots are going to come here to help. The other comment that I want to do is that it was shared yesterday in the panel. The population in Asia, it's aging 5 times faster than the rest of the world, and in the next years, we're going to have 250 million people less from or out of the workforce. So we definitely need robots, we definitely need technology in order to fulfill the whole of people that will not be able to work.
Yeah. Edith, I want to ask you about this idea that Felipe was talking about, basically that AI is particularly positioned to remove these, I guess, blue-collar jobs, if you want to put it that, repetitive tasks that can be done, manual labor. You know, it's interesting, you think about the last 30 years, what we've seen is a real, increase in income inequality, you would say, because a lot of those jobs don't pay as much anymore because of, and while the people that are employing those people are making more and more money. So what does AI do to the problem of income inequality? Are basically people that don't make much money about to make even less?
I think, for the longest time, even AI exists before generative AI. Everybody sort of worry about, is it going to replace blue-collar jobs?
Yeah.
But I don't think construction shop is going away. Maybe the milkman, but there's a really high skills that you need to use, or handcraft or artists. It's not going away yet. But what is actually going away first is the white-collar job. Right now, most of the investments or startups that we've been looking at are actually AI replacing sales, replacing marketing, replacing legal, recruiter. A lot of the white-collar jobs, and who knows, there could be Edith GPT one day. You don't even need me. So in some sense, because the regulation, just like if there's a robot that can build a house, I don't want it, because you need code to make sure that you can actually build that kind of fit into the regulatory framework. Therefore, I actually think that it's the white-collar workers that need to worry before any of the blue-collar.
Yeah, and there's been all these studies recently that have shown that actually there's income equalization, like among consultants and lawyers, where the sort of low-performing lawyers that were using AI get better, and so they get paid more, but the high-performing lawyers don't get that much better thanks to AI. So you get this sort of within professions income equalization. Very interesting. So, Felipe, if we go back to this idea of, okay, so in this AI influence world, where AI is influencing the workplace, and perhaps we're working less, we're doing less sort of work as we think of it. My wife tells me that I define myself by my work, right? I've always said, people say, what do you do? Oh, I'm a CNN correspondent, or right? And a very clear, sense of value, and people understand. You say, oh, I'm a journalist. They kind of. But what happens when work is not as important or defined in this new AI world? How do we? Where's our value going to come from?
I do think that the other part that AI unlocks is information, right? As soon as we as population start to understand better our health, the quality of our relationships, I will bet that work is going to be seen as different. Maybe taking what is work? A lot of people work for money. Yes. And money is an indicator of status. So depending on how much money you earn, maybe your job is more important, but maybe that's not a good way to see it. And what I think is that in the future, people will start investing more time in the quality of relationships, in their health, in taking care of their nature. And at the end of the day, that's going to make us happier and healthier. That was proved by the longest study in research of humankind made by Harvard, that what actually affects the most is quality of relationships and taking care of our health, and rather earning a lot of money.
Okay. Well, you'll both know that at FII we don't like to just pontificate about the future. We like to shape the future and shape it for the better. So Edith, to your point about how there's this threat that people that know how to use AI will actually thrive, but people that don't know how to use AI, suffer actually, in fact, the prospect of losing their jobs. How do we prepare people for that world? How do we prepare people for this AI-influenced workplace?
And I think it's so important for all of us to think about how do we educate and put together program, not only thinking about the student side of things, but also the teacher and the parents.
Yeah.
And really think about, like, for example, Khan Academy launched something called the Kamigo, which the idea is really about using AI, not to cheat, but use it to being sort of the tutor and the assistant. We also invested in a company called Good Notes, and they launched basically finish your sentence and correct all the grammar. But now you can actually write the notes where focus on the creativity side of it, and the AI actually help the teacher to be able to monitor, is this basically a copy and paste for ChatGPT? So I think it's very, very important for all of us together to think about how we can put together a program to educate so that our kids and your 17-year-old will be able to leverage AI.
Well, they know how to use ChatGPT, I can tell you that.
Very good.
Okay, so Felipe, what's the job of government in the future when it comes to AI?
Well, I'll say that AI is going to also help governments. I'm going to give an example of what we're doing with the Department of Transportation of Washington, D.C. So right now we have robots running around in Washington, specifically in the University of Howard, and we started to share data about the sidewalk quality, yes, and the inventory of the sidewalk and the signs to the city. And they are starting to use that information to ensure that they are ADI compliant, and they're starting to save money on just lawsuits that they have for not being ADA compliant. Taking that example, what I believe is that, first of all, AI is going to save a lot of money to government expenses, yes, in terms of healthcare, infrastructure. And second, of course, regulation and understanding is very important. So I advocate to regulate AI, to understand it, but definitely to promote it. There is a lot of problems to solve. In the developing world and emerging markets, there is still a lot of infrastructure to build. There is still a lot of nutrition problems to do, and AI and robotics are part of the solution.
So we only have a little bit more than a minute left. You're both sitting in California. We can't have this conversation without asking you what just happened at OpenAI, and does that have any impact, this sort of drama that we saw unfold there, on the future of work and how AI is going to influence things? Are there some lessons that you drew from the drama in California around OpenAI just now?
I haven't seen any sort of this crazy corporate drama that makes Silicon Valley into Hollywood since Uber.
Right.
And I think one thing to take away is governance, particular for a company board. It's just so important. A good board really is going to be there for you in the bad time. And I think a lot of founders don't really think hard about picking the right board member to really structure it in a way that is, and this AI is just so important for all of us that you can't just have only a few people that decide the future for such an important company.
Yeah. Felipe, you have 10 seconds.
Yes, yeah. I think that day I double-checked the board seats on my company. I think that boards are not important until they are important.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized. And I think that it's important to understand who controls the companies and who's on the board. I think that was an important learning for everyone.
Thank you. Felipe, Edith, thank you so much. Please join me in giving a big round of applause for
Thanks a lot.
our guests. Thank you so much. Please.
Thank you.